What's a good word, everyone? I'm Kenny Varner, the owner of SportsBooks.com. Welcome to the College Football Preview Show, where we are previewing 3 games from Friday night and another, 13 from Saturday, along with, of course, a Grizz preview from your 8th-ranked team in the country. The first game, we're up TCU minus 17 at Houston with a total of 51. Before we get started with this whole thing, sportsatballs.com is the name of my site. When you want the premium picks we have here at sportsatballs.com, we got week, month, year-long packages, 3 months, 6 months, you name it. Come check us out. So TCU minus 17 over Houston, total 51. We got a Houston team coming off not one, but 2 shutouts. They've been shut out twice in a row. Iowa State, pretty good team, undefeated. Cincinnati, not a very good team, but still was able to shut out Houston. This is a Houston team that has scored 7 against UNLV. We'll get back to this tough schedule for UNLV a little bit later. But 7 against UNLV, 12 against Oklahoma, 0 their last 2 times out. A very bad Houston team. Do we like their coach? Yes. Willie Fritz, maybe absolutely at the end, like Sam Houston State last year, there might be some value. Next year, looking for Houston, Willie Fritz. But like we've had with other coaches who are good, and we know they're good, you can take advantage of their teams now that might start to quit. With TCU, this is a decent team. They blew the Central Florida game, led 35-13, let the game get away. And then they let that game beat them twice because with all the penalties against SMU, we had SMU as an underdog at home to beat TCU. So we weren't afraid to go against TCU. But truth be told is they let UCF beat them twice. And how so? So many penalties against TCU, along with Sonny Dykes, 1, 2, no, not 2, not 3, 4 unsportsmanlike conducts in that game against SMU, thrown out of the game. They were still actually able to get points there. But when we look at this game, when I look at the total at 51, it looks low for a TCU game because it's a Sonny Dykes type team. So you know they have no defense, but they can score. But I think everyone might have a defense for Houston. So the best way I think to go, maybe a minus 17, but if you're not comfortable giving up that many points, it might be better to think of a team total. You know, at 51, it might be 34. So Houston, so TCU minus 35. If you look for a team that you're favored by 2, maybe you want money line parlay them. TCU is going to roll in this game, but it's hard to trust the Sonny Dykes team to cover 17. Although he will put in that extra touchdown at the end, if need be, to cover a spread. Cannot count on Houston to score points. So if I did do an over, it would be just on the one team. And Houston, yeah, we'll talk about you a little bit later. So now we got Oregon against Michigan State. Oregon, 23.5 over Michigan State. I'd want to get a 24 with Michigan State. I could only look at Michigan State in this spot. Michigan State hung in for a little while with Ohio State, but Ohio State was able to push away. And then you got Childs at quarterback. He is the one flying the ointment. If he just was, just an average quarterback that wouldn't give the ball away, too many turnovers. Because I love Jonathan Smith as an underdog. I love him as a coach overall. I think there's going to be great spots to bet on him. This could be a decent spot as Oregon has Ohio State on deck. But, they're playing on a primetime type situation here. But I look for Oregon to play a bit of a vanilla offense tonight. I look for Dylan Gabriel, get in, get out, run the ball. This team doesn't run 700 miles per hour and need to get to the line all the time. They're just looking to get in, get out. They have one game where they covered big time, and that was at Oregon State, an obvious motivational spot. But You put them up against UCLA, 21 points. You put them up against Idaho, 10 points, 10-point win. Not super impressive. Not putting the foot on the neck like you're used to seeing other past Oregon teams. I can only look at Michigan State plus the points as Dylan Gabriel is injury prone. So you look for a vanilla, run the ball more, and get in, get out, get Dylan Gabriel out of there. Backdoor could be open. The reason I don't take a big stance on Michigan State is the quarterback turnover problem. Could you go over 52? I would not argue against it. Now we got UNLV and their ever so tough schedule that makes them one of the best teams in the country, according to people in UNLV in Vegas. Handicappers, all but one. Well, one outside of myself. They beat Houston. Oh, look at that. UNLV pulled an upset. They beat Houston. Houston's 1-4. They did. We just noted how they haven't been able to score this year. How the cupboard is bare. Even so bare that Willie Fritz can't get this thing going yet. Team that's been shut out twice in a row. Great feather in your cap. Utah Tech, 72-10 or whatever it was. Cats did the same thing. Montana State did the same thing against Utah Tech. Grizz crushed Utah Tech last year. This is an awful FCS school. Kansas. Ooh. Well, what's Kansas's claim to fame this year? Oh, yeah. They beat Lindenwood. But, UNLV got some fortunate turnovers at the right time and beat Kansas. So it's a great win. And it is for a program like UNLV. Then Fresno State. Fresno State, who beat Sacramento State, who lost to NAU. They beat New Mexico State and New Mexico. Not exactly the cream of the crop. But UNLV goes from a 2.5-point favorite over Fresno, beats them by 45 with that result alone, since Syracuse won by 28. They go from a 2-point over look ahead line, 3.5 as the lines open this week, to 6.5. Could hit 7. I think this is a ridiculous overreaction. But let's look at the teams and see why they're overreacting to this. UNLV, 75% of the time they're going to run. They got a mobile quarterback, which Syracuse has struggled with, whether it's been Ohio, even Keene from Georgia Tech. In a come-from-behind mode, averaged 4.7 yards a carry. Everyone seems to forget that we actually buried Georgia Tech and couldn't put them away because of an onside kick, but we were all over them. But the freshest thing in people's mind is a couple of Fridays ago when Syracuse lost to Stanford at the buzzer, 26-24. I believe that if Syracuse rushes 6 people, they get an incomplete pass, they win that game, and are 3-point underdogs here. But since they let them throw it to the best receiver, the only receiver Stanford has, boom, they kick a field goal. You lost to Stanford on a Friday night. UNLV is the magic team. It feels like UNLV is the big-time magic team. Could go to the playoffs. They still got Boise down the road, but an undefeated UNLV team, group of 5, could be the next highest ranked team. When we look at Syracuse, what do we struggle with? Yeah, I'll say we. Syracuse and Montana is we. The offensive line struggled, keeping McCord upright at times during the Stanford game. He still threw for 339 yards, his worst performance of the year, as he averages over 370 yards a game. The one thing I love McCord, but what happened? The last 2 games, he's got 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 2 interceptions against Holy Cross, 2 interceptions against Stanford. I almost throw away the FCS interceptions as just a bit of carelessness, which is not good. But the 2 interceptions against Stanford, one wasn't his fault, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember way back because I watched every play of that game. That was a pick six, and that's what put Stanford up. It's been tough stopping the run for Syracuse at times, especially with a mobile quarterback. And this is UNLV's big time deal, a running quarterback. Yeah, Fluka's gone. Who cares? All you guys can hate him, even though you're wrong for hating him because you don't know the story. But that's a whole different video. The Holy Cross coach is not a liar, by the way. So, do your research. But anyway, that's neither here nor there because losing the quarterback doesn't matter. He was a 48% completions guy. He did not want more money. He wanted what he was promised, but everyone's going to hate on him just because that's what Facebook does. So we got a mobile quarterback that's going to be tough to stop. On Syracuse's side, on UNLV's side, I'll take their stats and go, okay, cool. Good job. You scored 23 against Kansas because you got some turnovers. You got 27 against Houston. Okay, cool. And their defensive stats I throw out because they haven't played an offense yet. Now, you can say Fresno, who fell behind by a ton of points early, so it was just like one of those games. But when I look at Syracuse with Kyle McCord, it's their first road game. This is the thing that puts me into if it wasn't their first road game, I'd have a little more conviction in Syracuse because Fran Brown, they've never, new coach, they've never traveled anywhere. I think it's great getting away from Syracuse where they've been patted on the back since June 7th, since freaking Brown's been brought in so much talent into Syracuse and said, oh, we're great, lose to Stanford. Let's get out of here. Everyone says we were horrible against Holy Cross too. So let's get out of this. We're awesome. We're selling out the Carrier Dome. Get to Vegas. There's a lot of people traveling from upstate New York to Vegas, just to let you guys know. Syracuse, on the ground, people have said that we should run more. The truth is there's a 60-40 split to the pass, which was a little bit more out of balance when we played Stanford and got the loss. On the one hand, Syracuse averages 3.5 yards per carry. On the other hand, their number one running back, LaQuint Allen, 5.3 yards a carry. So they can run the ball. Can they stick to it? Will they want to? Well, you want to pass, and then run, secondary and have that be like, oh, now we're starting to run the ball. Pass first, run, pass to set up the run, a la 49ers of Montana. But I see a defense in UNLV that was going to let up points to Syracuse. This isn't Houston. This isn't Kansas or Fresno State or Utah Tech. And how you go from a 2.5-point favorite over Fresno to a 6.5-point favorite over Syracuse shows there's the biases of other years. Syracuse got off the 4-0 start the last couple of years and then plopped out. This is a prove it to us game for both teams. You got one that could go to the playoffs in UNLV. You got a Syracuse team who is trying to right themselves. If they win this and they're 4-1, they got winnable games ahead of themselves, or at least some shootouts ahead of themselves. I look for points to be scored in this game. If Syracuse gets buried or UNLV rides the crowd and they get off the big lead, 38-21, 45-27. If Syracuse hangs in there, they're going to do it by throwing the ball, at least throwing the ball early, and then running later to even it up to that 60-40 split. UNLV 75% run. If they hit a couple of big pass plays early, cage by the door, Syracuse is in trouble. I look for this to be a type of game that goes to the wire, but you're going to see a bunch of points. I mean, to think that this spread was 3.5 and somehow it's been ripped up to 6.5 and people like that, I just don't get it. With the Kansas is 0-4. Their claim to fame is beating Lindenwood, but that was an upset win, and people are like, think UNLV has a quality win when they don't. This would be a quality win if they get it. So when we start Saturday, what we got? We got Navy and Air Force. I know, 81% go under with this game with the academies. They forgot to tell Navy that, who scored 59, 38, 56 against Memphis, 41. Those are literal scores that Navy has put up. Now you got an Air Force team who cannot score. They did lose 31-19 to Wyoming, an awful defense, an awful team that lost to Idaho, a Idaho team that just lost to Cal Davis, by the way. But they cannot score. So 31-19 to Wyoming, not good. Against San Jose State, they put up 7. We saw Wazoo score 100 against them, and 3 against Baylor. So what's going on with Air Force? Well, we knew before the season started. We did not do a video on them, but we knew before the season that Air Force was going to struggle. They can't replace players. They can't do the nil thing and just replace. They don't do this cheating stuff that all the colleges are allowed to do now. So they can't replace all 5 starters on the offensive line. They're way down, which is not always the case with these academies. I mean, Army and Navy are both undefeated, and they're in a better spot right now than Air Force, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So if these teams were not named Navy and Air Force and had the same types of offense, same types of defenses, I believe Navy would be 3-score favorites, at least in this game. I think this number is short. I think it's really short for like a money line parlay if there's some sort of backdoor. I don't see how a backdoor could be open for Air Force. You got a Navy team that knows all about Air Force. So now you got a team that knows how to defend Air Force. Teams that don't know how to defend Air Force have been shutting them down. And now you got a Navy defense that knows how to shut them down. I think this all points towards Navy. Even with Air Force being home, I don't see big home field advantages when these academies play each other. I could only look at Navy in this type of situation. The next one might not have as much conviction, but it's the game of the day. Texas A&M, Missouri. It's not where game day is because they were there, I believe, for Notre Dame A&M. But A&M, 2.5, 25th ranked over Missouri, 9th ranked, which always tells me to take the team that's lower ranked, especially on the road. But when you look at this, it looks like, oh, will Connor Weigman play? Doesn't matter. Marcel Reed is experienced enough. He beat Arkansas. He got the job done. This is a Texas A&M team, though, at home that struggled through Bowling Green. As a 24-point favorite, held on by 6. Missouri has the same problem on their side. They got a Vanderbilt team who's improved this year, but won in double overtime. Were very fortunate to get away. With Brady Cook, they have gained 410 yards minimum per game. Can they put that up on Texas A&M? I'm not so sure. I think the trenches are really I think A&M might have a slight advantage. I mean, how many times can you say that you're looking past somebody? And I'm talking to you, Missouri. Oh, we were just looking past Vanderbilt. That's why we beat them double overtime. Yeah, then why did BC jump on you? And why did BC come back and you had to hold them off 27-21? Maybe, even though you have 9 starters back, you're not as great. Or you think you're better than you are. When this line sits at under 2.5, Texas A&M at home, I would have to lean A&M, but, they still are 11-5 in their last 16 at home. That doesn't really matter with new coaches. So, they already have a loss at home. I just want to go over this. Texas A&M, 2.5 over Missouri. I would lean A&M, maybe lean an under if you lean A&M because that's a solid defense over there. And I think you got a solid defense with Missouri when you're matching it up against Texas A&M's offense. So I think this is perfectly put, maybe an under. But when you want to get my premium plays, sportshighballs.com, check us out. Get in today and boom, get Friday night and Saturday. And Sunday for that matter. All right. Now where do we go? All right, went there. All right. Now we got everyone's favorite underdog because they're going to do score comparisons. South Carolina crushed Kentucky 31-6, despite the 4 or 5 turnovers Kentucky had. Ole Miss just coming off a loss. Let's do some recency bias here. Just lost to Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky played Georgia 13-12, and now they beat Mississippi on the road. Great job. The truth is this offense is electric. There's no doubt in my mind Jackson Dart and company will bounce back. The fly in the ointment, what I really don't like seeing is the 22 first downs, 336 yards that Kentucky put up on them. With South Carolina, I'm not a big believer in Lenore Sellers. I'm definitely not a believer in this defense, and I know how inconsistent South Carolina is. I see a lot of people driving this point spread down from Ole Miss -9.5. Awesome team that only lost to Georgia and Bama last year. Oh, what happens when they lose to a medium team? That's a good question. I think Kiffin bounces back. I see the total here at 54. That could be low, but I don't trust the South Carolina offense. I trust their defense to let up points. This is not a team that's consistent. This is a team that lost to LSU 36-33. And you got to know that LSU scored 36 points in 2.5 quarters. Let me say that again. LSU scored 36 points in the last 2.5 quarters. Because the first quarter and a half, South Carolina is shutting them out. Once you get rolling on them, you've adjusted and you can score points. So how would I look at this game? I could only look at the Mississippi side, but South Carolina is so wonderfully inconsistent that they might be able to keep up scoring. I don't really think they will, but in terms of a bet, they could. And the value is off of South Carolina now because it was at 9.5. It's down to 8, and it keeps coming down. And over 54 would mean I'd have to believe a little bit more in South Carolina's defense. Getting over Ole Miss 30, 31 points, I think that's the best way to go in this particular game. I look for Ole Miss to pull away in this game and score some points. I think the public dogs will be whimpering today or Saturday. Now we go to my favorite adopted team of the year. My adopted team of the year, the Indiana Hoosiers. I've said on many of these videos how much I love Curt Cignetti as one of the best coaches in the country. Came from James Madison. Now he goes to Indiana. He brings a bunch of James Madison players over. Gets Curtis O'Rourke from Ohio as a great quarterback or a solid quarterback. I know people use the word great too much. But the thing I love about this team, now let's look. They scored 31, 37, 42, 52, 42. They're putting the ball in the end zone, not field goals. I had a bet on Indiana last week. Me and the clients had Indiana -6.5 at home against Maryland. Thought that was a very low number for a team that I have valued better than a lot of people out there have them. The best thing about that game, they won 42-28. We won the bet. That's always the best thing. But the next best thing is not 1, not 2, not 3, but a -4 in turnovers. 2 in the second half. And they still beat Maryland, an okay team, by 14. This is a team that they would have crushed without the -4 turnovers. And that's not what a Curt Cignetti team does. They're 5-0 and have 4 turnovers on the year. Yeah, they were all in the last game. So I really that's like impressive. And then seeing afterwards, I watched even afterwards. No, don't go right to the next game yet. Let's see what coach has to say. Cignetti, oh man, we're happy with the win, and that's where the positives went away. Because it's like, we got a lot to clean up. We can't have these turnovers. We can't be sloppy. We can't be penalized. There's just so much that they had to work on. That so much so that in my handicap, unlike I think anyone else's, I'm looking for Indiana to actually, even though they beat Maryland by 14, cover the spread. I look for Indiana to bounce back. and play a clean game, just a clean game. So I think they'll be focused to play a clean game. Northwestern, it's a road game at Northwestern. It can always be sleepy with no atmosphere there. That's always a little bugaboo. But I think the smoke and mirrors are starting to go away. They lost in double overtime to Duke, and this team just can't score. 5 yards, 5.1, 5.1 yards per pass attempt. That's not going to do it against Indiana. 4.2 yards a carry. That's not going to do it. When you're a running team, you have to average more than 4.2 yards a carry to hang in with an Indiana team that's been scoring in bunches. 2 pass touchdowns all year, 3 interceptions. That's why you got Indiana 13.5 and 41.5. I think this should be on the other side of 14, and I've actually seen it come down from 14 to 13.5. I think it's a very low money line play in terms of a parlay piece. I think it's very low for a team that I think is going to actually dominate, who I think is a really good game. And if they don't dominate, Cignetti won't crystal ball this game away. He'll still find a way to get the job done, just like he found a way to win by 14 points despite a -4 turnover ratio against Maryland. So let's move on to Alabama. Now these next three come with a caution to people. What's the caution? I believe what has started to come is people like to talk about spots. They talk about letdown spots. They talk about sandwich spots. They talk about look-ahead spots. I think that these are starting in college, at least, to be baked into the line. When I see Alabama 22.5, 13 in the first half against Vanderbilt 1 week ago with South Carolina on deck, this game would be 26-27. I think you're getting that much, over 24.5 of value, because this is a letdown spot. I mean, Alabama and their crazy win over the Dogs last week. We know how good Alabama is. You don't have to go through all the stats. You don't have to go through Milroe, in his last 17 games has 33 touchdown passes, and the average length of that touchdown pass is 35 yards. That tells you 22.5 could be a small number. The reason I like 54 is because it's Diego Pavia of Vanderbilt. For the first time in maybe 10 plus years, they have a quarterback with some backdoor potential. A quarterback that could, if Alabama's sleeping at the wheel to begin the game, score some points. I think if you're going to try to take a stab at Vandy, it would be in the first half plus 13. I would caution to get 14.5 if you can somewhere. I'd rather get 3 scores and only be down 2. Could they be down 14? Easily. I think when you look at this game, once Alabama shakes off any rust or any letdown, they will steamroll in the second half. I do say that Pavia has backdoor potential, but I'm not totally sure that they can stay within striking distance, but they might be able to score enough points to make this go over 54. There's a pretty solid chance that I think this could go over 54, but I think the line is low because of the letdown factor. Now, when it's proven that top 10 teams that play each other are about 60% of the 65% against the spread the following week. But no one wants to say that, except for certain spots where I got that information. Georgia, 21.5. This was at 24. 21.5 over Auburn with a total of 51.5. 13.5 is the first half. Even though I usually like teams that are far superior for the whole game, I could see a smash spot first half and full game. Seeing the post-game with Kirby Smart talking to Georgia, being so proud. The season's not over. Now you don't even need to get help from anybody else to make the college football playoffs after losing one game like you used to. Like what happened last year to Georgia. Georgia's not one of the 4 best teams. Heck, they're ranked behind Florida State in the final polls somehow before the bowl games are played. Florida State's 5 and undefeated with all those players out. They're ranked ahead of Georgia. That doesn't happen anymore. So I think you're going to get actually a team that's fired up with Georgia. I think the spread keeps going down. Why? Because of the perception that Georgia is going to be on a hangover. Also, a good perception is they've gotten off to slow starts, even against Clemson when they steamrolled them in the second half. They've gotten off to slow starts against Kentucky. They've had a propensity to get off to slow starts. This is true. I think this is a different situation. Haven't seen Georgia come off a loss. Can't remember the last time they played a game coming off of a loss against a team that was trying. Florida State wasn't trying. 66-3 was expected. But a real game. And that's why Georgia is where they are. Florida State is where they are. Florida State quit last year and still quit all this year. Georgia did not quit. They played. They didn't whine about not making the playoffs. They just played hard, get ready for the next season. When we look at the Auburn part, can Auburn stay in there? They could. They're better than a 2-3 team. I truly believe that, yards-wise. But they are turning the ball over at an historic rate. 9 interceptions between their 2 quarterbacks they go back and forth with. 6 fumbles lost. 11 fumbles, 6 of them lost. The Auburn stats don't matter right now. Why will they not turn the ball over against Georgia? We always say that if we could handicap turnovers, we'd win most of our games. This might be a game that you actually can handicap turnovers. There's going to be 3 by Auburn. Why not? What's going to make them stop turning the ball over? Even if they move the ball a little bit against Georgia. I don't see how that can happen. This is a total smash spot for Georgia or pass. I might pass on this game, but when you want to know who we are on, sportsballs.com. Get us for a year. We'll rock and roll with you. Month, 3 months, 6 months, a week. But I think this is going to be a fired up Georgia team from the get-go. I think Auburn's in trouble. And even if Auburn's able to move the ball, they're going to turn the ball over. And if they don't, more power to them. They're getting better. Don't see it. All right, now the next one. Another perceived thing. Now, I told you, now this could look like a contradiction because I've watched people do these types of shows and kind of contradict themselves. And I'm going to do that right now. I told you Oregon could be vanilla, looking ahead. Ohio State's on deck. Michigan State has a defense. I like that. Not saying Iowa doesn't. I look for a vanilla Oregon team. But on Ohio State, I don't. I look for another just crushing defeat. Ohio State favored by 18 over Iowa, 45.5. I don't like this defense for Iowa as dominant as even last year. This is a team that lost the lead to Iowa State, lost the game at home. They played Troy, a winless team against FBS schools. 24-21 in the third quarter. Let up 21 points, no turnovers. What Cade McNamara absolutely needs to throw the ball is a running game to complement it. And Caleb Johnson has averaged 8.4 yards a carry, which is awesome. Just awesome. The problem is he's not going to average 8.4 against Ohio State's defense. I don't see Iowa putting up the points. I see some people think they can put up the points. And if you think they can put up 14 points over 45.5 is a beautiful thing. But when Iowa plays the elite, they get smashed 42-10, 51-10. Those fake Big Ten championship games where they're the other team getting smashed. 18 looks light to me. I know why. I swear it went from 21-18. How can a defense like this? Their defense isn't as great, but Ohio State has Oregon on deck. Flying the ointment that could keep me off. Or it's lower than 21, lower than 20 because Oregon is on deck. Or it would be 21-22. How are you going to look at it? It's all on how you perceive this game. I look for Ohio State to absolutely bury this Iowa team. We'll see how it goes. Not holding the lead was a red flag. Letting up 21 points in 3 quarters to Troy was a red flag. It's a very bad Troy team. We just saw them get throttled by Texas State on a Thursday night. Yes, I was going to be more focused for this game. On the road, I do not believe in the line move of 21 down to 18. I don't believe in any 3 of these line moves. Alabama's going down to 22.5. Dogs to 21.5. Ohio State to 18. 2 or 3 of these are going to cover. I would say that for sure. All right. Now we got everything on that, right? Okay. Now we go to the undefeated Duke Blue Devils with powerful wins over Northwestern in double overtime. Kind of fortunate. A 26-21 win over UConn when they trailed going into the fourth quarter. A 28-point win over Middle Tennessee State when everyone and their mother was actually not playing because they were sick. And this is a Middle Tennessee State that's 0-4. And then they needed the comebacks of all comebacks. You have to give it to them. Manny Diaz, defense, reached down. North Carolina had chances to go up 24. Never did it. All of a sudden, Duke comes back, beats North Carolina 21-20. And that's all good on them, especially for a program like them. But they're kind of like Rutgers, which we're not previewing, but I look for them to lose to Nebraska by more than 7, but we didn't preview that game. This game is gone, though. People have taken this from Georgia Tech 8 to Georgia Tech minus 9.5. This is a Georgia Tech team that was beaten pretty good by Syracuse, but never gave up, got their onside kick, and came within a play, a 3rd and 10 play where Syracuse converted, and then they lost. So they don't quit. This is a team that absolutely dominated Louisville on every place except the scoreboard, 31-19. And what happened in that game? Haynes King showed up. He's always good once or twice a year. He's a really good quarterback. I really like this kid. But he'll throw the ball backwards, boom, touchdown Louisville. And then they don't just get a field goal block. They get a field goal block in return for a touchdown. But they have 2 weeks to prepare for Duke coming off a huge emotional win at home. I could only look at Georgia Tech. I think the talent level disparity is pretty good. Manny Diaz's defense, I think, is going to get worn down in this particular situation, but they are good. Their offense, I keep thinking Malik Murphy and company are going to just get a little bit better, and it just doesn't seem to happen. Kudos to them for beating a North Carolina team that's spiraling out of control of not being good. But I could only look for Georgia Tech to win by double digits. Probably not something I'm going to get involved of unless it's a money line parlay, because I really think Georgia Tech is a pretty good team. It's a top 25, 30 team, no matter what the record ends up saying. And Duke at 5-0. It might be the 5-0 that puts them as only 9-point underdog. Maybe they're 12 or 13 if UConn hangs on and beats them. So I can only look at Georgia Tech. Clemson, Florida State, big bad Florida State, 14.5-point favorites over Florida State with a total of 46.5. Clemson will be fired up. Yes, they lost to them last year. They're always going to be fired up when they see Florida State on the other side. This is a Florida State team. Now, DJ Uiagalelei finally has a hangnail and is not going to be able to play. They really didn't want to bench him, so they just said he has a finger injury. Sounds good. And now Brock Glenn. You know Brock Glenn, who won the ACC title game over Louisville with 8 of 21 passing for 55 yards. I'm just not going to say that there's value in Florida State at all. Their defense could hang them in there for a quarter and a half. Clemson is a good team. People don't want to admit that they're top 12, top 13 team. They'll just keep going out, blowing out teams, and then have people say, they're not that good. This team's not that good. Look what happened to Georgia. Yeah, they played with them for a half. But DJU is out. Block Glenn is in. This is a team that got a 14-9 win over Cal, a team that can't score at all. Got 3 field goals on them. And then went out and got throttled, got embarrassed by SMU. SMU is starting to come on, team that I thought would be pretty good. Not sure where they're at overall, but they just got absolutely embarrassed, throwing pick sixes all over the place. Now, the defense could hang in there for a while, but take Florida State at your own peril. I would take Clemson in a moneyline parlay over a Florida State plus 14.5. I understand not giving the points away because it could be 27-13 final, and 14.5 doesn't get you to the window. But there's no way I could take Florida State. With Brock Glenn at quarterback, is there backdoor potential? Not that we have seen. We'll see how good this kid's going to be. He got recruited by Florida State, but there's no proof that he's lived up to anything. Now, I think this is next one here. Miami, 10.5 over Cal with a total of 53.5. This is the exact reason why I believe that spots are figured into the line. This feels like it should be 15-16. I've seen game simulations that say they should be 9.5. This is Miami going across the country. The first game outside of the state of Florida. We're calling this ACC After Dark, of course. But we got Miami coming off the escape of all escapes. Yes, it was an obvious non-touchdown, but still they escaped. That was the crystal ball game. I don't believe this will be the crystal ball game. Head coach Justin Wilcox for Cal, though, has seen Quinn Ward just last year in a 42-39 loss. Now, of course, this is a lot more talented Miami team, but he has seen him. So however you want to look at that. This is a Cal team. What's their claim to fame this year? Okay, they beat San Diego State, a team that can't score at all. Up there with Air Force in the amount they can score. 31-10, cool. 14-9 loss to Florida State, who's really not good at all. Could only muster 3 field goals. But the one red flag, big, huge, maroon-type red flag was Auburn's win or California's win at Auburn. Cal went to Auburn, won 21-14. Really? Isn't that a good win? They were plus 5. 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, plus 5 in turnovers and beat Auburn by 7 points. This isn't a great top 25 Auburn team where they're like this huge underdog. No, they beat Auburn by 7, only 7, by getting plus 5 turnovers. Are they going to get plus 5 turnovers to Miami? Anything can happen on any given Saturday. Now, this is back in Berkeley, where they got all the advantages. Game day is in Berkeley. Is that going to – if this game was earlier in the day, I'd be more high on Miami. But game day is in Berkeley. Miami gets psyched for that, but it's game day, and then 11 hours later you play football. So the situation, I understand, has been baked into the line. So as this goes down to 10.5, goes down to 10, is a spot, and the books know it. So if you're thinking you're getting this big upset, Cal plus 10, after Miami just escaped, I'd be very careful with this game. Let's put it that way. Be very careful. They got their wake-up call against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was able to run the ball. If Cal's able to run the ball, they could shorten this game. That is for sure. That's what you're going to want to see. If Cal can run the ball, shorten the game, make this a defensive struggle, they could be in there. I'm not sure they could do so. Probably not a game we're going to be on, but I think Miami had their wake-up call against Virginia Tech. Everyone is still waiting for the Miami crystal ball game. Not sure it's going to happen until they play Clemson in the ACC title game. All right, now we got Arkansas, Tennessee. Arkansas 13.5, 57. Tennessee -7 first half. 70% of the time, Tennessee, with this coach, has covered the first half. They jump on top of people and bully them. 70%. Every single game this year, Tennessee has covered the first half. I might just automatically go Tennessee first half and forget about it. Why? Because Pittman as a dog is a dog against ranked teams, 7-1. Pittman as a dog has just been money most times for Arkansas. He got the money if you were a smart bettor when they were +8.5, +9 against Oklahoma State. A fluke got it to an 8-point win where some people won with Oklahoma State. But that was double overtime. And then they were a dog last week and went up to 5.5, 6. They lose by 4. But good enough to just lose. Can they stay within 13.5 of Tennessee? It's really hard to say with a Taylor Green that averages that has thrown 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Can they run against this Tennessee defense? Oklahoma and NC State are the two teams, 2 step-up games. Closest thing they had is step-up games, and they shut them both down. It's still hard to tell how good this Tennessee defense is. I think they'll get a decent test, especially against that Arkansas running game at home. If they stuff them, if they can stuff them on the ground, they're going to get Taylor Green to at least have two turnovers in this situation. With Pittman as a dog, with Petrino has that offense ready at all times to score. Maybe an over 57 could be a pretty good look. Tennessee -7 first half. Just almost auto play Tennessee first half every single game. And it's only half the point spread. It's not like they're favored by 13. You have to win by 12 in the first half. They're cutting it in half because a lot of people don't bet that. Tennessee first half would be a recommendation. The next game, I don't have a lot on, but I'm going to do it anyway. Washington -1.5 over Michigan, 41. Automatically pick Washington. You got a top 10 team at home, on the road, against a team that has struggled. Couldn't even beat Rutgers. 521 to 299 yards advantage, yet with no turnovers in the game, still found a way to lose. That's why it's like Washington. I mean, how long can you – I mean, you either got the best coaching staff of all time. If you can continuously, even going up to Washington, a tough place to play that no one knows how tough, but it really is a tough place to play, and just be able to run every single play and win the game, unless they get 3 or 4 turnovers. Let's say the turnovers are even. You almost have to, unless it's Auburn, Georgia. And then go, how is Michigan going to score? It's a good Washington defense. I mean, how is Washington going to score? Yes, but they can throw for 300 yards in a game. They can throw for 200 yards. They just need a couple of possessions. And now is Michigan going to run right through Washington? I don't think so. I don't think this is a really good Michigan team. I think there's 2 teams that have dropped way off from where they were last year. I could only take Washington to finish off drives, even if they finish off drives with field goals. Every time they cross the 40-yard line of Michigan, they get a field goal. I think they win. Line's been coming down from 3 to 2.5, 1.5. Maybe Washington goes off as a dog Could only look Washington here. I have a really tough time when it's not an academy with a team that can't throw for more than 60 yards. And if they can do it all year through the Big Ten, more power to them. I'm going to say they can. All right, one last one. Pitt -2 at North Carolina. I can't take a side here, but 55-24 over Kent for Pitt. What's so great about that? Kent scored 24. 28-27 over Cincy when like 9 points were scored in the first half. 38-34 over West Virginia. This is a Pittsburgh team that averages 329 passing, 192 rushing. That's a 300-200 split, basically. North Carolina found Jacoby Criswell, a competent quarterback, 247 yards passing, 208 yards rushing. That's a good split. When you get to 300-200, when you get to 200-200 club, bingo bongo, 64. Feels like a low total. Plus, North Carolina lets up big plays to teams like Pittsburgh. Because Pittsburgh makes big plays, lets up big plays. 64 looks like a small number there. That's what I got for Pitt, North Carolina. Points. You tell me who wins that game. Now we got the Montana Grizzlies. Weber State. Here's what I will say about the Grizz. Sitting at 4-1. I got to say they are. So they're sitting at – they got one win against the spread. And that would be against Morehead State, 59-2. But what does Morehead State not have that all the rest of the Grizz teams they play or will play in the future have? Scholarships. So they covered a 50-point spread there. We were 16, 17-point favorites against Missouri State, 1-5. We were a 7-point favorite, 6-point favorite over North Dakota, lost the game outright. That North Dakota's team now is ranked 7th in the country, right above us. They go to North Dakota State. Great top 7 matchup in FCS. Western Carolina, 14-point favorites. We fall behind 17-0 win, 46-35. 16.5-point favorites on the Tampon turf in Eastern Washington. We held on for dear life, 52-49. If you're betting FCS, don't. But if you are betting Grizz, do not give points with the Montana Grizzlies. With that being said, I look for them to pull away and actually steamroll Weber State in Missoula. No one, even when you're down 17-0 to a ranked team called Western Carolina, no one is coming into Washington Grizzly Stadium and walking out with a win. The Grizz are going to win the rest of their games in the regular season up until the Bobcat game. And hopefully what the Grizz need is to improve their defense. The defense that's let up 35 and 49. Now we have scored 59, 46, 52. Logan Fife was unreal. He played the whole game. I didn't play. All right. I'm sure you don't know a lot about the Montana Grizzlies, but they're ranked 8th in the country. If the defense comes along, look out. I don't believe we're going to lose a game until we go to Bozeman, and then it's just, I'm not saying we're going to lose that game in Bozeman, but that's the next time it's going to be tough. ESPN 2, November 9th, 8th ranked Grizz, 9th ranked Cal Davis. Should be a good one. But like I said, no one's coming into Washington Grizzly Stadium and walking out with a win. All right, see you guys in the next video. You want to walk out with some winners? Get a week-long, month-long, year-long, 3-month, 6-month package, sportsheadballs.com. We'll see you in the next video. We love doing these college preview videos. Tell me what games you want me to do next week. And we'll see you guys in the next video. And let's make money.